Hi there, I'm Mike Burnett, and this is my attempt to finish 40 of my tracks in 2020. So this week is the first week I'm working on, officially working on tracks. I'm a little bit behind, as expected, because I've had loads of other stuff to do in terms of getting all of these projects sorted and working out how I'm going to deliver it all. And so each week I'm going to be focusing on a certain aspect of the process of finishing this production. So we've already seen in the short video the track that I'll be working on this week. A few of the things that I wanted to just show you with this project are more to do with stuff that I've realised from revisiting this, as I say, like 12-year-old project. But some of the stuff that I found in here is really interesting. So particularly here, with respect to the old dirty old bass combo track here, which when we have a look at is quite an extensive rack that I'd built. So I've got MIDI coming into this bass combo stack here, and then the source of each of these sounds is operator, and I've got 3 different operators here stacked, and I've labeled each one of those as various different sections of the bass. So I've got a body section, a subsection, and a noise section, and then each of those is in turn then going through a stack of various harmonic distortion effects, the amp, the sausage fattener, which I was using quite a lot back then, Decimort, which is one of my favorite bit crushing, bit reduction plugins, and saturator, and then a filter at the end of that, and then on top of that a bunch more processing, including more saturation on the entire bus, more EQ, and another filter. So I've got like really quite a significant number of devices on this track before we even get to even more distortion. So this is another decimator, and then a volume envelope here before finally another kind of harmonic distortion at the end. So I think the amount of distortion on this track seems somewhat ridiculous, but when we listen to it, although it may be a little bit over in terms of level at the moment, we have a listen to it, I think you'll agree it's fairly heavy. Though there's a lot of distortion in there, I still feel like it's got reasonably well-defined edges. It sounds solid. It doesn't sound necessarily like just like a big muddy swamp. One of the things that I realised as I was printing this stuff to audio was that I was using a device here called Bass Exorcist. And once this is set up correctly, what it does is it sends the incoming MIDI note to an audio device later in the chain via this little patch here. And that then basically notches out the tritones or the dissonance or the devil tones, as they're sometimes referred to, from that particular note. And you can see it working here when I skip between the different notes. If you want to find out more about tritones and dissonance, I would always be inclined to recommend The Devil in Music, another great little music theory insight from the man that is Adam Neely. Always a great resource for if you want to go deep on music theory. It's in the max4live.com library here. It's definitely making a significant improvement to the clarity and the definition of the bass sounds, he says, when the bass sound is one massive monstrous growl. But it does make quite a significant difference. Not built by me, but another great example of stacking synths. There's a lot of stacking going on in this project, and I think that's probably one of the more interesting tenets of this particular piece. So this is giving us this really kind of aggressive, bristling, arpeggiated lead. This is a really great stacked sound. It's really dynamic, lots of detail, lots of size to it. It's quite a wide sound, and I think one of the challenges in the mix is going to be striking the balance between this sound and the big one here, because here we've got another example of synth stacking, but this one is a device that I've built myself. So let me just move my little picture here up north. So what we've got in this one is 5 devices that I've stacked. But here I've used a Again, it's quite an extensive rack here. There's a couple of devices that I don't have, but I think it's only a tube distortion that's missing from this one. Again, we've got a similar kind of harmonic distortion setup. I think I was very gentle with the use of the sausage fattener. Again, I think this was around the time that sausage fattener came out, and it obviously ended up on nearly every track in nearly everything. But it's horses for courses. If it works and it does the job that you want, then that's fine. I've got this tension, this epic grain lead, which I believe is a preset that I've modified from the Ableton library. Now let's have a quick listen to that on its own. Kind of sitar type, really bristling tonal effect, and tension is great for creating these kind of sounds. The second layer in this is iZotope Iris version 1. A really interesting, another like kind of quite cerebral texture, but also with a lower tone in it that's got quite a lot of movement. It kind of sucks in and out of being there. It does tend to make this big one line a little bit unstable, so that's something that I have to be kind of aware of when I'm coming to doing the mix. But again, it's like layers and layers of interesting texture. So then we go to this big sitar, which I think is probably a modification of the Epic Grain patch. But again, there's these kind of moments where between the notes, it sounds like it's compressing, and it's creating quite a lot of dynamic change, and that's going to be quite challenging to work with getting the mix. And I've also got this awesome VST called Cyclop, which is by Sugar Bytes, and this is just a great resource for all kinds of extreme noises. And then the last but not least here is Massive. So Massive is also layered in here. This is original Massive. Quite often when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I will just stack various presets that have kind of tones that I'm looking for. And the cumulative result of all of these things being stacked is this. It's already sort of working. The Angry When Sober lead is definitely much brighter. It's definitely higher in the register, and it's definitely exploiting the stereo field a bit more. But I can't imagine narrowing the big one down completely to mono, because it does need some width, some breadth to it. The largest part of the challenge is then going to be shaping that with this dirty bass combo, because quite a lot of the important stuff with this bass combo noise comes into the lower mids, and also there's some high frequencies in there that really do help to kind of give it its edge. So gluing these three together is really going to be the crux of the challenge in terms of the mix. But let's just have a listen to those three. Yeah, so that's going to be the main part of the challenge, is getting these three parts to really sit well together. And as you can see, this is a great example of how I've used lots of instrument stacking to create a lot of really in-depth, a lot of really expansive sounds. If we then consider that there are three instruments here, again, probably a number of, no, that's a single, two here. So that's 5, and then there's another 5 here, 10, and then there's another 2 in there, 11, 12, and then there's another 3 in here, 13, 14, 15. So we could add there's actually another 12 tracks, if you like, embedded in these 12 tracks. So we've kind of kept the arrangement and composition fairly straightforward by stacking. The overall sound of this track, I think I'm fairly comfortable with, just about getting that bass level balanced, and getting some, getting the kicks and the drums and the percussion really to do their job of cutting through this mix. And I think particularly with the kick drum and some of the percussion, I do have a bit of work also there to do to really sort of drive them home. But let's just have another quick listen to a middle section here. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the process and I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions about any of the stuff that I've done in this video, or any comments in general, I'd love to hear them. I'm going to need all the moral support I can get this year to get through these 40 tracks. And I just generally hope that other people get some enjoyment out of listening to the music that I've finally managed to wrap up and get out there. So thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.